Today, we are breaking down the life and career of the rising star, Sharaputdin Magomedov, also known as Sharabullet. I will be referring to him as Shara for the sake of my sanity. So without further ado, let's get right into it. But before we do, we need to talk about my stats. It says that 99% of you watching are not subscribed. Let's try to get that number down to 98. Alright, now that we have had that little talk, let's get right into Shara. On May 16th, 1994, it was a crisp Dagestani morning. A young woman would give birth to a baby with one good eye, and that baby was Sharaputdin Magomedov, aka Shara. He would grow up in the mountains of Dagestan. The first sport that garnered his attention was soccer, but he would get kicked off the team due to an argument, which would lead him down the path we know him for today. He started his combat sports career with boxing, where he would see some success, but he would soon move to Moscow, where he would get into Muay Thai, where a young Shara would flourish, and eventually become a Russian champion. After finding some success in boxing and Muay Thai, he would finally make the transition into the growing sport of MMA. He wouldn't have any amateur fights, therefore he would jump right into the professionals. And on December 9th, 2017, Shara signed to a promotion in China called Qinwu Men. His opponent would be a 13-7 fighter called Yinkang Bao. Shara would shine bright in his debut, because just 46 seconds into the fight, he would land a nasty head kick that would leave his opponent sleeping on the canvas. After his insane debut, he would go into his second fight not even a month later with a crazy and deserved amount of confidence. He would face off with Jayadar Ali, but this wouldn't be as easy of a fight. But Shara would still get the TKO win in the second round with a barrage of leg kicks that would leave his opponent begging for mercy. After going 2-0 in less than a month, Shara would take his next fight on February 19th, 2018, less than a month later against Yeshan Yursin. This poor soul was making his MMA debut, and he wouldn't even last a full round before getting knocked out. After disposing of Yeshan, Shara would take a month off and eventually fight again in March of 2018, this time fighting Wulan Muhammad Ali. This would be a 55-second knockout because he would land a knee to the liver, leaving Wulan keeled over in the fetal position. Shara would take the rest of the year off and fight again in May of 2019, but he wouldn't go back to MMA. He would go to kickboxing to fight another future UFC fighter, Mike Mathetha, also known as Blood Diamond. This would be a back and forth scrap, but Shara would still get the nod in the decision. After beating the future UFC talent, he would go back to MMA, but due to the illness that shut down the world, he would have to wait a year. And in February of 2021, he would make his next appearance. But he would spice it up a little bit and fight with modified rules, the rules being that it can't be on the ground for more than 30 seconds, which is a cool idea, but these rules wouldn't let the win or loss go on your professional record. Anyways, with that out of the way, he would fight Vasily Zubikov. Not only would Shara knock him out in the third round, but he would force his opponent into retirement. After retiring his opponent, Shara would fight a few months later in April, this time fighting Eldar Garafutinov. Still under the modified rules, this would be a much harder fight than his previous few, so it would go to decision, where Shara would get his hand raised in victory. Shara would waste no time in throwing hands again, making the walk into the octagon against Yakub shoutout Kadayev in July of 2021. This would be under the regular rule set with no ground limit, but the rules wouldn't matter because in just 2 minutes into the fight, Shara would throw brutal knees that would destroy Yakub. After getting the TKO victory, Shara would walk into the octagon just 2 weeks later on August 4th with the modified rules intact once again. His opponent would be Vladislav Kovalev. This would turn into a scrap with both men having their moments and both men being tested, but there can only be one winner, and Shara would be walking out of that octagon the winner. Around 6 weeks later, Shara would take on a modified rules fight. This time, he would be set to fight Ivan Maidenchuk. This would not turn out like his last, because in the first round he would dominate his opponent, getting him out of there in just 3 minutes into the first round, and forcing him to retire. Just 3 weeks later, Shara would take on another fight, this time with the regular rules. He would be facing off with Mikhail Alverdian. This would be much like his last few fights, because Mikhail would be no match for the budding star, because in just 4 minutes, Shara would land brutal elbows and force the ref to step in and stop the fight. Shara was on an unstoppable pace, especially considering the majority of his fights have been finishes in the first round. Not wanting to slow down and lose momentum, Shara would take on his next fight just 3 weeks later in November. This time he would fight Joel Dos Santos. This fight wouldn't be a first round finish, but it would be a second round finish. Shara would land a nasty hook kick that left Dos Santos defenseless, gaining yet another knockout on his resume. After getting back-to-back knockouts, he would get a chance at fighting for the Arena Global belt in February of 2022. A 7-0 Shara would take on the champion, 27-21, Rodrigo Carlos. This would be yet another walk in the park for Shara because in just 4 minutes into the first round, Shara would land vicious shots on the feet, followed with ground and pound, and would get the knockout victory once again, as well as getting his first belt wrapped around his waist. Things were going perfectly for Shara until the afternoon of March 15, 2022. Shara had taken verbal offense to a man and a woman kissing in front of him while using an escalator. Afterwards, the man punched Shara in the face, but before Shara could retaliate, bystanders would step in and separate the two. Not known to take an L, Shara would wait for the man by the exit sign, and once the man arrived, Shara would beat him up and finish the altercation with a swift stomp to the head. Shara would get charges, however, nothing would come from this. Now that we have that big story out of the way, let's get back on track. Just a month later, Shara would fight in a modified rules fight with Pavel Belutsky. This would turn out to be a one-sided beatdown that would only last 2 minutes because Shara would knock out Pavel in just 1 round. Shara would take a few months off to focus on his craft as well as recover from his busy schedule. In August of 2022, he would make his return to MMA. This time it would be the regular rules. His opponent would be Sergey Martinov. This would be a much harder fight, lasting until the last round. But 2 minutes into the final round, Shara would land a vicious knee that would leave Sergey unconscious on the ground. After getting a great knockout, Shara would take one more fight to finish off the year. This time he would be fighting Mikhail Rogozin. This would turn out to be a much harder fight than he had expected, with Mikhail testing Shara's cardio and grappling, but Shara would win the vast majority of the exchanges, leading toward a unanimous decision win. This win would be enough for Shara to get a second title fight. This fight would be 8 days after his previous one. He would be facing off with the champion, Kushal Yas, but this would turn out to be his fastest fight in his career, as well as being on the short list of fights that lasted less than 10 seconds, because in just 8 seconds, Shara would land a brutal knee that left the former champion sleeping on the canvas. After getting his second belt wrapped around his waist, Shara would finally get the call from the biggest promotion in the world, the UFC, and in October of 2023, the UFC fans would finally see why this man with one good eye, a shaggy haircut, and the last name Magomedov was so hyped up. And he would be given a UFC veteran who gave Poatan a run for his money, Bruno Silva. This great matchup would garner a ton of hype, and it would not disappoint, because once the ref said fight, it was a back and forth scrap with both men showcasing their strengths, and the UFC would see how unpredictable yet polished Shara's skill set is. This fight would go all 3 rounds, and Shara would undoubtedly be given the victory, with many fans speculating and critiquing how far he could go and how good his skills would look against a fighter in their prime. Shara would be the talk of the town for a while, whether it was about his looks or his skills, but Shara was not eating up all the hype. He wanted to fight more, and he would get that shot in June of this year. He was set to face off with Jailton Lutterbach, but Jailton would back out at the last minute, and Antonio Tricoli would step in. This was a hard-fought fight, but Shara was destroying Antonio and made him look like he shouldn't have been in the UFC to begin with, and he would win by knockout in the last round of the fight. Not only getting the knockout, but he would be awarded a $50,000 performance bonus. After dismantling the Italian, he would take on yet another up-and-coming prospect, Michael Olenjacek. This was a crazy fight that showcased the strengths of both men, and they would come out battered and bruised. But Shara won the majority of the exchanges, therefore he would be given the unanimous decision win, as well as a $50,000 Fight of the Night bonus. And that brings us to this weekend. Shara is set to face off with another good fighter with some hype, Armen Petrosyan. Sharaputdin Magomedov has a 14-0 record, 19-0 if you count his modified rules MMA fights, which I'll remind you do not go on to his professional record. He is currently 30 years old and stands at a staggering 6'4". Shara has had 7 knockouts in the first round, 2 knockouts in the second round, and 2 knockouts in the third, as well as winning 3 unanimous decisions, which means Shara has an impressive 79% knockout rate, as well as being on a 19-fight win streak. Overall, I feel like Shara will knock out Arman in the second or the third round, because he is very unpredictable and can land shots that catch his opponents off guard. That concludes the fighter spotlight or potential prospect, whatever you guys want to call it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, as it is the only way to support the channel. I hope you guys have a great week and enjoy the fights this weekend. Bye.